So next, may we invite Dr. P.L. Yuen, the past president of HKIE and vice president of CIBSE UK, to share his view on infection control.
Dr. Yuen was the 46th president of HKIE for session 2020 and 2021. He is a professional engineer working in the public hospital engineering sector for more than 30 years. During the outbreak of the COVID-19, Dr. Yuen pioneered the invention and design of the first high-standard negative pressure isolation facility using the modular integrated construction method. Let's invite Dr. Yuen with a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Chris, PP Raymond, my God, most respected. So I'm very glad being invited here to come to share with you how engineers could and have been tackling the COVID or pandemic in the last 3 years and even back to SARS in 2003. So in terms of infection control, so the focus will be on that establishment of isolation facilities during the pandemic to cater for the upsurge of cohort requirement of patients. So I tend to do my presentation in a bit of storytelling, which is about my journey through this difficult time from SARS up to COVID. So the subject area, or you can call it a book of, the name of the book is Infection Control, an engineer's journey, battling against adversity. So it will cover a bit of the prologue. Hope to catch some interest from you. And then the narrow strip of story will cover SARS and through to COVID, and also some reflection at the end. So the prologue start with some date in March 2003 when I was driving down the road to heading to the toll counter of the Dongham Port Harbour Terminal. There was a frequent call from my phone, and I hate to pick it up because it distracts. But I knew at the time it was critical, so I need to pick up the phone. When I pick up the phone, then I said few yes, and then my mind totally outfaced with my driving, and driving by instinct caused problems. But at the time, because of SARS, there weren't a lot of cars around, so I get through. So it was a calling for me to build over 100 isolation rooms by next day. Because there have been thousands, if not hundreds, of patients who require quarantine. So probably I sought out some means to complete this requirement the next day. And months later, similar request was raised. So asking me to get prepared 1,400 beds, converting from existing hospitals, general ward, and get ready in 3 months' time, because they were worried about the SARS may come back in winter 2003. So I try hard, and then we get through later on. But I try to think that what actually would cause some of our colleagues when they work in hospital and then die, would not be able to come home. So that is very sad, though, because they will work in hospital general ward and unnoticeably be contracted by the hidden spreader. So I try to think what engineer can do. So it's changed my whole mindset of my career. So when you graduate from university, and then you start a good life, and then you bought a home, your family, and your car, whatnot. But that changed significantly my journey, and actually, it was a fulfilling one. For a bit of myself, I studied mechanical engineering in both PolyU and the University of Hong Kong, but I didn't understand why I couldn't get into the IMechE for some reason. Because a lot of questions came to me when I applied for IMechE, but I couldn't have time properly. That's my problem. So I worked in EMSD and then worked with Van Gogh, and he taught me a lot of things. I can tell you something later on.
That was not.
No, come to the point. Come to the point. Yes, yeah. So I got the CBI scholarship and worked in UK and in Saudi Arabia in some of the hospitals, and learned a bit of salesmanship. And this day engineer would need to do some marketing. Pure engineering will not work. When you come to management and when you come to negotiation, you need that skill. Oh, so start during SARS. At that time, Hong Kong had no experience of pandemic. And the vivid memory I had was we have a few decades ago in 2003 that we have some TB infection, but not a big, large-scale infection. So nobody would actually thought of there would be a big pandemic coming along. And for that reason, we only have 177 isolation rooms all around Hong Kong. And it was such a shocking condition that we, at a time when SARS come, then we need to have so many isolation rooms get ready for these suspected or infected patients. And during which there have been a lot of debate about how SARS was transmitted. And still today, people argue about how COVID was transmitted. So there are actually some definition. In terms of airborne transmission, they're talking about airborne transmission. So for any particle size bigger than 5 micron, that would drop acoustically in short distance, for example, in 1 to 1.5 meters. So they call it droplet. And anything below 5 micron, they can call it airborne. But as a matter of fact, if you see the figure here, the photos here, when somebody sneezes and coughs, there is a spectrum of particles, tens and thousands of them. So they are varying in size. So the actual mechanism of infection varies significantly. You cannot purely by saying that the size of a particle. You have to look into the infectivity of the virus or the germs and condition of a person. Whether it's young, whether it's old, you can see today is right now at the end of the COVID, they actually attack younger and the oldest. But for the middle age, we have no problem at all right this moment in time. So there are a lot of problems, or if not concern, on how it was transmitted. But never mind, we still need isolation room. So that call I just mentioned in Poland, it was called by Dr. Go Wingman. Actually, he called me by saying that we need that 100 isolation room tomorrow. So we get it, and of course, with my old friends from EMSD, because at that time, nobody would actually dare to work in a hospital. And it was EMSD who can help out. And then have to secure the number of ventilation fans required. And that, how I did it, because it's difficult. When I was driving, actually, I'm trying to think how to do it. But I calmed down a little bit and I thought I would revert into simple basic principle. What is the meaning? What's the purpose of this isolation is going to achieve? It's basically trying to not allow the air from the room going out. So basically it's exhaust, all right? And at the same time create a bigger air change rate whereby it can dilute the air of contaminants within the room and then directly outside. So I just try to think of simple way by installing exhaust fan in the window. But of course, this stuff has been done without sort of trade-off. You suck out a lot of air conditioning. So that is something to do with it. But of course, the only choice is to create the negative pressure or the airflow to house in this patient without letting the germs coming out. So right after SARS, I was asked to do this 1,400 isolation bed, and it was completed also in winter. This is another challenge because we've been asked to convert multiple rooms. But the only thing we have in hand is the CDC guideline, which is a single line diagram. So how to interpret it, how to make it a multi-room sort of operation is challenging. You know, if you open a door for a multi-room situation, you can create a negative pressure of one room, it's okay. But there are multiple rooms, they are keep opening and shutting, and this pressure will vary, and there's a pressure gradient requirement. So eventually I dig deep into the control concept by making use of the Venturi valve and all these things. I didn't go into the detail. And also the airtight door, pressure regulator. And eventually we have done that. So after SARS, I was actually overwhelmed by the death of some of the colleagues, medical staff working there. And I started research with Professor Yuguli and other medical staff and then look into the ventilation seriously. So we actually found out from various, in the past 50 years, all this research paper concerning about infection in hospitals. We found that there are very close correlation with the ventilation and also the spread of disease in different hospital wards. So with that, I ventured into, in my late 40s, to study a doctorate degree. So this is applied research. It's different from PhD. So I had a problem in mind, and I tried to sort it out with my research. And because I can do it without the course, but I want to force myself to go into it. So I did a course. And graduated in 2012, and I've actually devised some method and have it published in the infection control journals. And I tried out in some hospital and eventually found out that it helped to cut down the influenza infection in the ward that I have ventilation done. So it's not a big sort of rocket science, but just changing the conventional airflow direction within ward, and then check up a little bit of the air change, and then you can achieve it. All right, and get some award. And I also invited by the WHO and UNOPS to build isolation room in Indonesia. I went there for 6 times, and I get it done. There you go. So beyond SARS, I work for the engineering industry, so I don't want to go into detail. As the president of the HKIE as well, and whatnot. So here enter the COVID. Because at the start of the COVID, you see the picture on the left side. I sat in the major incident control center with other colleagues there. So it was in the early of 2020. So nobody would actually thought that it's going to be a big pandemic. They just think that it will be another SARS. So we thought 1,400 isolation beds will be enough. So nobody would actually dream of adding any temporary or whatever. But for me, I smell something. You gotta see the rising of these occupancy, and I saw something happen in China. They are building 4神山 and 6神山 in short time. So there's something going on. So I tried to devise something that would build upon the further of the 1,400 beds. But at that time, it was blocked. There's nothing can be transported from China or anything. There's no material at all. So I know a contractor. He's actually very enthusiastic to help out. He's an air conditioning contractor. And he just make out of air duct, just make it vertical and then put in filters and fan, make a fan filter unit. By doing that, I can exhaust the air through this unit, like the one that I've done in SARS. But this one with air filter, meaning it will not affect neighbor colleagues. So that's important. That's what I've been told after SARS, that they're worried about the air coming out from the isolation room. So we find the prototype also by EMSD colleagues. With the idea, they actually found some manufacturer to do it. And then we make it for the another wave of COVID. Because at that time, the Boris Johnson actually said they won't treat any patient contracted with COVID. In UK, I thought I had my daughter study there at the time, so I thought don't come back to Hong Kong, stay in London, it's safe. But as soon as Boris Johnson said, no, there will be no people who are looking after you, I immediately asked them to come back, asked her to come back. So at that time, there was a rush of citizens coming back to Hong Kong, and that's required a lot of isolation facility. And it's just right meeting the time that we did around 600 beds of tier 2, so-called tier 2, with these ventilator units installed. And another challenge is there's another way that call for major isolation requirements. So we turned the Asian World Expo into 1,000 bed, hall number 1 and 2 into totally 1,000 bed cohort isolation area. That is a major challenge as well because we haven't done it before, and we only have given 7 days. And once I visit there one time, and then 7 days later, we have to complete it. So it's a major challenge, and that would be already enough for another story, but next time maybe. And we have done that. And also another wave, that is the 5th wave, is even worse. And we have 76,000 daily peak of patient required cohort. So that is also a difficult time. We did the so-called tier 3, which is actually same as what I've done in SARS by installing exhaust fan. By that time, there was a problem that somebody said that if you bought this fan from Taobao, it's only $200. And I said we do it according to our term contract, it's around $1,000. But people said that we ought to buy it from Taobao. I think that's settled because at the time you don't even get something from China. There's all blockages, and after all, we procure it through our standard system, but still is reported by the press like that. I think perception is true. I have nothing to say. Even I try to defend, but I talk from people who said don't do that. People will forget it sometime. So beyond COVID, because it's quite common to build MIC, but it's for public housing or temporary housing. Van Gogh no better than me. So I thought, why can we do MIC with inside with the high standard isolation with pressure differential and automatic door? So I had that idea, but I don't have funding at all. And then I tried to approach Hong Kong Jockey Club, asking for some money to build. And they asked me, are you an SME? I said no. So are you buying computers or buying face masks for the oldest, for the youngest? I said no. So I don't get any money. But I talked to one of my friend and fellow classmate, Gilbert Zhang, is working in government. And he said, yeah, we can help out. And then with that, we actually solicit support from the industry with no money involved. They all contribute and donate things. And then we eventually built a high standard isolation wall. And that was actually put in CIBSE for demonstration. But not later than that, because Asian World Expo, people saying that the patient cohort there would have a chance of collapse. They need isolation room. So we followed that to the government and have it recited, and you can see the middle photo. Put it there in case they collapse, that the patient can put there for resuscitation. And after that, it's been putting back to CIBSE for demonstration purposes. And after that, I've also been appointed by the government to do another very challenging job of improving the ventilation in all Italy's, 18,000 of them. So people asked me, don't do it, because at the time I was the president. It was difficult. don't get the whole institution into it because you're not going to achieve it. But eventually, a job difficult but get done. So that's worth another story. Maybe later I can share with you. And I stood out as an engineer and to a media interview to talk about the drainage and the ventilation. And people call me feng shui, but sometimes I won't cheat them. And it is why I stood out frequently because Van Gogh. At one time, Van Gogh told me that as a president, you need to stood up in front of the public to raise the profile of engineering. All right, don't worry. All right. So that's Van Gogh. Thank you. So a bit of reflection, epilogue. So with all these challenges, the only thing in my mind is, you believe you're going to see it. All right. Instead of a lot of bureaucracy saying that seeing is believing. But with all these challenges, with all the unknowns in front, so it's only believing. Believe you can do it. But it's not without empty basis. So you need to have knowledge. You need to have experience. And last but not least, you're bold enough to take action. Thank you very much. Thank you. There are questions.
Thank you, Dr. Yuen, for sharing. And now is the 5 minutes Q&A session. And please feel free to raise your hand and ask the questions. Our staff will lend you the mic.
Any question? No?
Okay, I ask the first question.
Okay, please.
Well,
Yes, please.
This time it's a question, not an opinion.
Yes, please.
Waste has been a problem for Hong Kong for a long time.
Sorry, say again.
Waste, disposal of waste.
Yes.
Is a problem for Hong Kong for a long time.
Yes.
We have put a lot of money to build the first incinerator. We haven't not seen one working yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is the engineering society or anybody from the engineering sector come out and say something about it?
Now, first of all, I'm already retired, as the president. So I leave it to the officers to handle it. But certainly we are very not interested, but we are very serious about these ways. But the point is, it's a government policy that had already dictated some of these directions. And that direction is also good. It's just a matter of how to take it forward firmly and quickly. So at Wong Kam Sing, actually, we have a lot of dialogue. Every year, he actually had a lunch with us, and then from time to time, we put in our effort to convince the government try to do something positively in quest for this handling of waste. So incineration is actually what they have been doing, the K Park and all this old park. And in recent time, I actually attend an IEA's symposium in Ireland a couple of weeks ago. But unfortunately, when I came back, I got the disease. So during which we have exchange from Western countries. They said this day they can make use of the waste very efficiently, but you have to segregate them carefully. They mix up some of the plastic with the clothing, the waste clothing, and turn into some so-called solid waste. And that can be used to fuel boilers and all this. So it's actually another way, and they are working very closely on that. And on the other side is about the energy conservation, maybe you haven't mentioned. It check up a lot of these tariffs. Yesterday we had the big, huge raise in tariff. So there are two sides. Government will need to press for the tariff, but from the general public, we ought to do something. Because when I took the taxi from Heathrow down to London, I actually saw not a lot of people turn on light. It's about around 6 o'clock. They are very conscious about use of electricity. But when I came back on the plane, you see, all the lighting on. So there are a lot of opportunities that people can do to do something about it. So it's the whole community. It's not only the government. But of course, engineering profession, we have raised from time to time. But as you mentioned, it's not that profile come out. So maybe I press for the officer to do something more. Thank you.
More questions?
Maybe I ask a lot of questions. I think I asked that 2 days ago, but I want to make sure everybody understands. So you mentioned about a lot of cases in hospitals and also in shops. So I think now a lot of ordinary people like me would like to travel in airplane. Can you tell us a bit what are the preventions required when you travel in airplane from a citizen point of view? So can you share with us what are the best practices and also is it dangerous in the airplane or the public transportation?
I think this is not absolute science for me because there are some research done in airplane as well. But my own view is probably you need to sit in A1 because when the plane fly, all the air will come down all the way to the seats at the aft. So whenever you have dinner, lunch, breakfast, everybody take off their mask, and then there will be coughing, talking, and this thing will pass through you before they end up into the air conditioning system with the filter. Even some of the airlines, they said they have HEPA filter, but they are pathway. So you are not lucky enough that you set somebody in front of you have the disease and then you caught it. So to me, the experience is try not to take off your mask when a lot of people having their lunch and dinner. So try not to do that, all right? Maybe you don't eat, all right? Speak out for drinking water and all this. But when majority of people are doing their supper, so stop taking off your mask. That's my piece of advice, but it's not science.
In fact, I took your advice and I did not get COVID. I just got
Oh, good. That's good then.
Thank you for that.
So thank you for inviting me and bear with me my little story. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your time.